countdown.
Okay.
You're now tuned into Radical Radio with Coach L.
Switch my attitude. I'm so radical. 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 I'm so radical.
Radical Radio is designed to get to the heart of our guest stories. Oftentimes you see people moving and they make it look so easy. Many don't know the story behind the journey, the heartache, the disappointment, the wins, or even the loss. What has it cost you? We are removing the stigma of judging a book by its cover and gaining perspective from our guests in the most radical way, in their own words. Testimonies are meant to be shared to help others move forward. That's the radical way, y'all. Let's go. What's good? What's good? What's good? Thank y'all for joining us. This is a special edition of Radical Radio. We have our own Billy Coleman in the building of the North Chicago think tank. Billy has some things that he definitely wants to share with our people, with the town, with the community, with Lake County. And this is a necessary discussion. So I am so glad to have him here. This is Radical Radio. I am your girl, Coach L. Thank you guys for joining and tuning in. If you don't mind, go ahead and share this live. We are on all major platforms of podcasting. So if you do miss this, you can go back and listen to the replay on all major podcast platforms. We will be live. We are also live on YouTube, Periscope, as well as Twitch. So you can go to all those platforms and you can type in Radical Radio and then we will pop up. You can catch the replays there for those of you that would like to go to those platforms. Once again, I want to thank you guys for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to bring in Billy Coleman.
Hey, everybody.
Thank you, Billy, for coming. We've had a couple discussions. You're going on a tour of sorts, kind of getting on these platforms and really sharing with these platforms what it is that you're looking to do. The initiative that you have, the North Chicago think tank, has been growing and going since when?
It's been going since last summer.
I know that you had gotten the empowerment and the drive that you needed when we were dealing with the George Floyd situation. Yes. Tell us a little bit about North Chicago think tank, why you decided that you needed to start this initiative and what it's all about.
Okay, so the North Chicago think tank has a very simple mission, and that mission is to improve the quality of life for citizens of North Chicago. If you really want to get into detail about our mission and our pillars and our goals, you can go to www.northchicagothinktank.org and download our ebook. But really our focus when we call ourselves a think tank, we're really talking about empowering people to acknowledge and use their organic strengths and their intellectual property. So what a lot of us don't realize about how like white supremacy and oppression works is that they pretty much try to study you to see the way you think or see the things that you build, and then they make you feel like the things that you're thinking or the things that you build are worthless. And then they take those things from you and start to use them to almost make you an infant or make you super dependent on them. So we really want to come back to the city of North Chicago and say, what is the quality of life that you want for yourself? And how can we work together to think up solutions and mobilize and enact those solutions?
Gotcha, gotcha. That's dope. For those of you that don't know, like I met Billy last year, when the whole George Floyd situation was going on.
Mhm,
He came to one of our events, and
mhm.
this dude is very, very well versed. He has been around, and I'm not just talking about local. I'm just not talking about, in the US. He has gone abroad. He has, really studied and been in very, very different atmospheres to bring back to our town and really be able to share his experience. And that's something that's dope because we don't know what's going on, but it's amazing to have one of our brothers to be able to go and get the experience and then be willing to bring it back to us and share with us and say, hey, there's some villages, there's some tribes, and they're doing this. This is what they're doing.
Yeah.
So can you talk to us a little bit about, the experiences that you've had abroad?
Yes. So I started going abroad in 2008, and I'm going to just kind of talk about how I went from a corporate based success mindset to a global identity success mindset. So what happened was, just like everybody else, like I need to just make money and I need to get me a house and a car and I need to display what we believe to be the perception of wealth. You know what I mean? And I was doing that. Um, and then I was doing like system administration and I was working for various corporations. And then I moved over to Underwriter Laboratories, which is a safety engineering company, and it's
Mhm.
filled with engineers. And I just started to listen to the engineers, and the engineers really focus on intellectual property. Like they're literally like, I have it in my brain to design this key fob,
Mhm.
and you need me to pull from my brain the specs for this and build this and test this in order for it to work. And they really just empowered themselves. And I was like, man, humans have been doing that for a long time. Black people did that for a long time.
Right.
We are innovators. We were inventors for a long time. When you talk about Black History Month, it used to just be a list of all the things that people created.
Right.
And that still resonates with me. I'm like, man, if we just think about stuff, we can, procreate new things. So, alongside working with the engineers, I started working with a group of people which are called instructional designers. And what they do is they look at how we teach and they say, okay, if you're going to teach something in a web based training or you're going to teach something in an instructor led training, this is how you put your learning objectives down, and this is how you do your modules, and this is how you make sure you confirm that that intellectual property was actually transferred over to somebody, whether
Yeah.
it's like knowledge checks or different activities or engagements, but just enough for you to say, this person obviously knows that.
Right.
And it was really intriguing for me because we just used to like listening to a teacher and taking the test.
That's
Like,
right.
when you come through, I came through District 187,
Mhm.
and my experience was just like listen to the teacher, read the book, they finna ask you a question, write what it say, whoop the bam, get your grade.
Right.
So this was very different for me and it excited me. But, engineering is a global science.
Yeah.
Our science is global in and of itself. So,
Right.
I went to a global summit and I met some really amazing people um, from all around the world. And I met, that was in 2006.
Mm.
It might have been in 2006. I had my first meeting with someone who identifies as Afro Latina,
Ah.
and I met someone from Cuba, and I was like, wow, I just didn't know I was so disconnected from these cultures.
Mhm.
And then I went to China, and then in 2008, I was like, you know what? It's a world out there. I want to see it. So then I moved to Paris,
Right.
and I just told myself, like, you deserve springtime in Paris. Like, just facts. You get to go do that. And so I kind of just like, for lack of better words, I ran away. And then I started to realize that the world, the earth itself, is more black than we're led to believe. And so I went to Paris and I was like, wow, like there's Africans here. And, at that time I was thinking of cultures very like in a clump or
Right.
like monolithic.
Mhm.
And so then I just started to see like, oh, this is brown people and this is black people and this is Nigerians and these are, people from Ghana and these are people
Yeah.
from Venezuela. So then I moved from Paris. I went to India and I started to live in India. And then I moved to Thailand. Then I moved to Vietnam, went to Malaysia, just like really was moving around. And back home, everybody kept asking, like, is he in the service? Like, is he? And it was like, nah, like, you could move around this planet if you really wanted to. And so, I did a lot of volunteering. I worked in Nepal, and it was just grassroots, field-based, like, organic anthropology.
Right.
Just meeting families and being like, wow, like, this is how you're marginalized. This is how we're marginalized. This is how you survive this. This is how we survive it.
Right.
And it gave me just a lot of encouragement. It gave me a lot of encouragement, and it gave me a lot of ideas to bring back home. So then when I came back home, it was kind of difficult because everybody equated what I was doing with luxury.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
when I was like, I'm abroad, people was like, oh, you must got money. And I was like, no, I'm just using my brain, like
volunteering.
Yeah. And we don't even know that, like, being from America, you don't know, like, currency conversion actually means something, and revenue streams actually mean something. If you have money coming into yourself, if you develop these things, and you could kind of step away for a little bit and survive off these things. So I was going to other countries where the cost of living is less, and not exploiting them,
right?
But just like taking advantage of currency conversion while understanding my privilege.
Facts.
And embracing their culture. The reason why it's so expensive for many people to go overseas is because you don't want to engage with the people. You want to go to a resort, and it's white, and they're going to charge a lot of money to keep you there, and you're not going to really engage with the people. You're not really going to eat their food. Right. And I kind of just abandoned that thinking, and it created a lifestyle, a global identity lifestyle, and that's how I see success now. Is the more you kind of expand your brain to allow yourself to see that you are an earthling, not just in one space. You really give yourself more opportunity to develop and grow.
That's dope right there. Listen, I need y'all. Listen, for everybody that's on here right now, I need you to tag 5 people, and I need you to make sure that you share this live, because this is a very important discussion. I know that, this ain't a turn up right now, but we need to have this discussion. Real talk. Like, we can't wait no more. We are in dire need to start having real conversation about the status of where we are as a people. What we are doing and what we are going to do to change the dynamic of how we're treated, what we endure, the oppression that we have suffered. Like, this is an important conversation, and I just want you guys to make sure that you share this, so that we can get this content out for a cause, because it's definitely going to be some things that we need to do to make this happen. So, Billy, we decided to come together and share this information because you have a great initiative with the North Chicago think tank, and you are putting yourself in a position to make sure that we come together collectively and in unity to hold elected officials, private institutions, public entities, funded and non-funded nonprofit organizations, and ourselves accountable to make a change, to do things that's necessary. We have a responsibility to do things that we need to do in order to make an impact, to make people understand that we're not going no more. Yes. Right? Yes. So let's start talking about the fact that you want to utilize authenticity and accountability as 2 of the staples to put together a program where we as a people can hold ourselves accountable, and be authentic in what we're going through and make a change for the better. Yeah. Let's talk about it.
Okay, so I'll start with the authenticity piece. And I really got this from when I was traveling, right? So what happens is that if you've ever encounter a true, like, village, or like a forest tribe or a desert tribe or a hill tribe, they're not just gonna accept you. You know what I mean? You could come in and you're like, oh, I want to help do this, or I want to help do that. They're gonna look to see, like, first off, who invited you to come here, and then they're going to put you through different experiences to see how authentic you are, and they're really gonna watch. So one of those things happened when I was in a place called Darchula, Nepal. So it's in the Himalayas, it's in the range that's also Mount Everest, but I was just to the west.
Okay.
And so, one of the things when I got there, they were like, the school that you want to visit is at the top of the hill. So
Wow. So you gotta get
climb,
to
like you
yeah,
gotta
yeah,
get there. And so it was like, dang, like I'm climbing the hill, but they heal people, so it's
Yeah.
real easy for them. So they watching me trying to see like what's my character and
Right.
how much endurance do I have.
Mhm.
And then they even looking at like if they offer you tea or chai, they would say chai. If they offer you food, like how you holding your face, what are you looking like. And I really found some similarities with that in Black people.
Yes,
Is
I
that
was
we
just thinking that.
yeah, we're not allowed to define it as a culture, but it is a culture. Like whether you call it the streets, whether you call it hood, whatever.
Mhm.
It's like they want to see authenticity.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I really try to work. It's really tough because we measure authenticity in very different ways. You know what I mean? Some people look at it like what's your way of speaking or your vernacular or what school did you go to or who your cousins or who your mama and what was y'all doing, and people really grade each other like, are you authentic?
Right.
Are you really down for me? And I think it's important for us to validate that for ourselves, but to measure and say, what's your measurement for authenticity?
Right.
Is it just because somebody got a bag or they rich? Is that what makes you listen to people? Is it just
Right.
because they're famous? Or is it just because they have whatever you think they have? Like you really have to ask yourself what makes someone authentic enough
Facts.
for me to listen to them and enact whatever they're asking me to do.
Yeah.
Like that's so important.
That's dope. And you're right, because as you were talking, I'm like, yeah, we do that as Black folk all the time. Like, oh well, how you get here, or you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
is she gonna eat my mama food, or
Yes.
she gonna act funny when the food come out? You ain't gonna eat,
Yeah.
and we take it offense
Yes.
to when you come to our house and we having a barbecue and you don't eat nothing.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So I like that. Now, when you were you from the hood,
Yeah,
so
I grew up on 10th and McAllister, and we went to 10th and Leonard.
right. So they didn't know that you was from the hood. So what was your thought process when you standing at the bottom and you got to climb up here? Did it ever occur to you like, I done been through worse, let me try to get up here?
Yeah, it was like, when you and this is something that I really want to share with other Black people. Like I really want other Black people to go to other countries and experience it, because you're gonna start aligning experiences. You know what I mean? You're gonna start seeing them and being like, oh man, they do this like this. We do that exact same thing in this way,
Right.
but ours isn't validated.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like, we just got little idiosyncrasies or ways about ourselves, behaviors that we don't really know where they came from, like smacking your lips. You know what I mean? Like that's a cultural trait that comes from Africa. And people, it's deemed as disrespectful in this country. Like if you smack your lips at your parents, they're gonna be like, don't be doing that or whatever.
Right.
But it's a shared trait to display disgust or irritation. And we don't validate that. We don't ask ourselves, like, who passed that on to me?
Right.
Like, who told me how to do that? And so when you're in these scenarios with these different tribes, they watching you and they're like, why you cross your legs like that? Why you move like this? Why you do like that? And it was really important for me to see that there was some things I was doing just because it was part of my natural identity, but then it was other things that I was doing simply because I was colonized.
Right, right.
And so I would go into even like pants, right? I would go into certain scenarios where they don't wear pants, they wear like wraps or sarongs, and the men and the women wear it. And they'll watch you to be like, you gonna keep them pants on? Like,
right.
Or are you gonna change? You gonna be like us? Are you gonna eat this? Like, how far are you really, willing to take it? And there were some instances where like I had to learn how to bathe outside because they bathe outside because they don't have the same body insecurity issues that we have, or they don't have the same constructs of rape.
Yeah.
And, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's different things. And so you just go through this almost like transformation where you're like, man, all these things that I thought were important maybe aren't that important.
Right, right.
And it really taught me to, to really grade people's authenticity. To be like, why are you asking me to do that?
Right.
You know what I mean? Is it really necessary, or are you just an extension of the colonizer? And when I came back home, I started to notice that a lot of people who are in leadership positions for whatever reason, or extremely rich, they're just extensions of colonization. And if you really think about it, like if you really think about it and you really watch them, you'll see they're not asking you to think.
Right.
The think tank is not asking you to follow us.
Okay.
The think tank is asking you to think and hold us accountable and say, these are the goals that you're trying to do. How can I participate in the discussions that build the solution?
Right.
Not the think tank finna tell us something and we finna listen. But that's how we've been conditioned. That's how we've been colonized.
Right.
And so I had to go to these other countries to see, how do they have their discussions? Do the women speak? Do the men speak? Is one person just making decisions? And I went to the Mae Ramo refugee camp in northern Thailand
Mhm.
to understand the plight of the Karen people. And these are people who are they just forest people,
Mhm.
and they ended up in a bad way, and they've been on a refugee camp since 1997. And they built an entire village, but they smart. They know how to use bamboo. They know how to build dams. They know how to climb trees. They know how,
Right.
they just have all these intellectual property. They just
Right.
really know how to think. So they so self-sustainable
Mhm.
that even if they in a bad way, they still know how to protect their independence and also hold each other accountable. Like they do this thing on the refugee camp where you rotate roles. So you
Mm.
might be a teacher. They built a school on a refugee camp, many
Right.
schools.
Yeah.
And I've seen kids learning in the forest, and it really made me come back and be accountable. Be like, man, okay, maybe we don't have a school like Lake Forest High School, but you could still teach these kids. Like, we could
Right.
still get it done. It really made me realize, like, the accountability needs to go up. We need to start saying, what are we requiring from ourselves and those people that's set up around us to protect and serve us, and is it measured? So they had a really just solid process where they like, you're gonna be a teacher for the first 6 months, and then you're gonna be the chef for the next 6 months, or whatever. They
That's
rotate
dope.
around the refugee camp so that everybody understands,
Yeah.
and everybody is in charge at some point, and it was really effective.
So, with that being said, let's get into the elected officials. And, I want you guys to share this live, share this live, share this live. I know that, this ain't a popping topic, but this is something that we need to discuss. That's one thing about us. Like, if we partying, if we drinking, if we kicking it, if we having fun, then, everybody want to come out. But then when we're talking about something real that we need to do as a people and collectively come together, like the numbers start dwindling down.
Yeah.
And that's just not cool. We got to get away from that. This is like a lot of good necessary information. So let's go ahead and start talking about the shared responsibility. I know we said that we are going to hold these entities accountable, and we're also going to hold ourselves accountable. But when it comes to elected officials, we were talking a little bit before the show started. Hey, Angela, thank you for joining us. If you can share this live for me. If we start talking about the elected officials, a lot of us run away from politics, right? That's just how we've been conditioned. We don't want to deal with something that has been put in place to oppress us, right? So how is it that we need to hold the elected officials accountable and ourselves accountable in this mission?
So it really goes back to taking the time to come into the community to say, what does shared responsibility look like, right? So when we think about the responsibilities that we have, maybe let's just say parenting or going to your job, we think of it in a very vertical way, like everything is on my shoulders, right? And that's not really how villages work. Villages work horizontal, where you have all these people in the village and everybody is taking up some form of responsibility to make sure no one is really burdened down. And so we have to acknowledge that as of right now in many of our communities, we are burdened. It's really heavy on us, whether you're single, whether you have kids, whether you are Black, whether you're Hispanic, whether you are, it doesn't matter. You are just severely burdened with your day-to-day requirements. Absolutely. And that's because we're not sharing the responsibility, and we're not even creating safe spaces for us to say who we're supposed to be sharing this responsibility, taking care of the community. And what'll usually happen is that we'll look at elected officials, which I believe they should be the most accountable.
Absolutely.
They should be the most critically thought of, because they've been elected for a reason. The people have chosen them, and that's when you choose someone because you think they authentic, it shouldn't really come to you having to hold their feet to the fire because they're supposed to be your homie. You know what I mean? Like, if you ask somebody in your family to take care of the family, and then you find yourself having to go behind them and make sure they're doing stuff, it's a problem because you thought they was authentic. You thought they shared your vision. You thought they just cared about you like you care about them. So we really want to talk about elected officials in a way to be like, you're supposed to be on our side. And this is already problematic that we have to have this conversation. But when you talk about elected officials, so many people talk about it in a way that's not measured.
Mm.
Someone say, well, this person is a good mayor, this person is a bad mayor. Or, you look at North Chicago, Waukegan, and Zion, and you're like, oh, it's all three black mayors, and this is happening. It's like, but what does that mean?
Right.
That's not actually measurable. What is their job? And what are the actual measurable objectives that they're supposed to accomplish? What did they say they were going to do?
Yeah.
And that's huge. I don't think we're doing that work to say, Mayor Rockingham, what you supposed to be doing?
Right.
To say, Mayor Cunningham, what you supposed to be doing?
Mm-hmm.
And then how do the elected aldermen surrounding you play into that? How does the treasurer play into that? How does the director of community development or whatever these roles, like, what's your job?
Yeah.
And who's holding you accountable? Like, I'm gonna be honest, your credit report, they holding you accountable.
Absolutely.
You at your job, they gonna do what is it called? A background check. And yes, Angela, she said we also need to know how they intersect.
Absolutely.
And I think this goes back to us saying you have to be humble enough as a local citizen, and I had to do this, to go back and say, maybe I don't understand civics like I thought I did.
Yes.
I don't know who owns my curbs.
Yeah.
I don't know who owns the street light. I don't know who owns my parks and what that actually means, right? So we need to go back to the elected officials and say, you need to give us a very easy to read and easy to measure job description.
Yes.
Just for this year.
Yeah.
And we're going to hold you to it. And I think that's an initiative in and of itself, but it's an important one. We have to start there and say, look, you want to be the mayor? That's fine. But you're going to take everything that comes with being a mayor. And we're going to make sure everybody in the city understand what it means to be a mayor.
Absolutely.
And I think once people do that, then you'll start to see voting start to rise. You'll start to see investing of self start to rise, because it's like, okay, you want me to trust you. Now I have a means to do so.
Yeah.
But we also have to, and this will come when we talk about our citizens, they also have to be ready to do a critical analysis.
Yeah.
Who is doing a performance check on these leaders? No one. Because that's what voting is supposed to do.
Right.
That's your, and where's the midpoint? What was, Mayor Sam Cunningham supposed to do last year?
Right.
What was Leon Rockingham supposed to do last year? What's the mayor of Zion?
Billy McKinney.
Mm-hmm. What was he supposed to do last year?
Yeah.
How is he? We have a demographic of very special and unique cultures and people, and we're not all the same.
Right.
And we're not asking each other to be the same. So how are you helping the Latinx community? How are you helping the Black community? How are you helping the Eastern European community? How are you helping the LGBT plus community? How are you helping the undocumented community?
Yeah.
You know they're here.
Yeah.
You know they're here. And you know that you're supposed to be helping them. How? What are they supposed to do in spring versus summer versus fall versus winter? And I'm really charged up about this because I think right now they're really supposed to be protecting us from COVID. And I'm just seeing an extreme failure in that regard. And there's really very clear measurements set out by the CDC and money dedicated to protecting people from COVID. Shout out to Mano Amano, which is a great organization out of North Chicago and McHenry that focuses on providing resources to immigrants and undocumented people who are trying to acclimate to life in the United States. Seeing a lot of transparency from them, seeing a lot of information and willingness to collaborate, and I really like that.
Absolutely. Now, when we talk about elected officials, we're talking about our community, we're also talking about holding ourselves accountable.
Yeah.
We're going to get down there a little bit, but there's also private institutions,
Yes.
public entities.
Yes.
What do we need to do to hold them accountable? We're talking about businesses in our community. I know you were talking about a report card.
Yes.
Share with us how those things can be implemented so we as a people can collectively come together, unify.
Yeah.
And see, that's the key, y'all. We got to understand that at some point, nothing's going to change until we're able to come together and unify and all be on the same accord. Like Billy said, none of us are the same. All of us have different perspectives. All of us come from different backgrounds. We're all different in some form or fashion, but we all got to understand that if we do not unite and come together on one accord, and that's the accord to hold all these entities accountable, then we're still not going to make a positive change. And change is not going to be something that's going to happen overnight.
Yes.
We have to really plan.
Yes.
So let's talk about the fact that we can have all the ideas in the world,
Yeah.
but until we start to come together, not have, everybody in a room and people yelling, screaming, hollering, cussing, and going at each other.
Yeah.
We have to sit down and we have to collectively plan. With planning comes collectively listening.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that.
Okay, so I really like to always think about whether I think about immigrants or I think about undocumented people or I think about Black people coming up from the South in the great African American migration. They saw something really special in Lake County. My grandfather came up from Paducah, Kentucky, with my grandma, who was coming from areas of Mississippi and Tennessee. They were moving around. But when they came to Lake County, they really saw an improved quality of life. They
Absolutely.
could see it. They had a vision. And I'm pretty sure that people who come from other countries come here and they're like, man, if I work hard, I'm going to be able to provide these certain things for my family. And we just going to be able to chill. Like, I'm going to be able to be with my wife or my husband, and we're going to have these kids, or we're not going to have these kids. Whatever we're going to do, it's going to be a high quality of life. And I think we really got to get back to that vision that they saw, because I think we're losing it a little bit, right? So when you talk about private institutions and public entities and coming together to say, what do we expect from them? If you look at the lakefront in Waukegan, Zion, and North Chicago, it's like, it's polluting.
Right.
It's heavily polluting. And we've been seeing that our whole lives. Abbott been doing stuff. Medline is being ridiculous. I'm not going to speak too much about it, but the immigrant and Hispanic community is really being taken advantage of from Medline and Gurney. And if you really want to know more information about that, I suggest you check out the Sierra Club and others who are trying to promote the Stop ETO bill. But like, you have to ask yourself, what is ComEd supposed to be doing for us? Like, you funneling them all this money for your lights.
That part.
When you go to the village, and some of you guys are first generation immigrants, or you might be close to another culture where when you go home, they're not relying on nobody else. They light candles, they using fires, they have their chickens, they have their farms, they have all this stuff. They're really reliant. So it's like, you so reliant on ComEd. What is ComEd supposed to be doing for you? What is Abbott Labs in Waukegan supposed to be doing, or North Chicago supposed to be doing? We're smelling all of these weird smells. There's documentation about how much risk we have for catching cancer from airborne toxins. Like, this information is out here, and it doesn't care if you're racist or not. Air is air, and if they're polluting the air in North Chicago or Waukegan or Zion, it should matter to everybody. So we have to ask ourselves, what are these private institutions and public entities supposed to be doing for us? You talk about diversity and inclusion. What about all the gas stations in our Tri-County area? What are they supposed to do for us? While we funneling all this money to them, we want to hold these large, you take BP, right? They had a horrible oil spill, and people are like, you're not allowed to do that. You can't just destroy the ocean like that. Why we don't say that about North Chicago, Waukegan, and Zion? Why don't we say, if you're going to come in and you're going to open a gas station, you need to have equal representation in your employees, or, there just needs to be something. What percentage of is it the Tri-County? Am I saying that correct? What percentage of the Tri-County area is exactly representative of the demographic? We have to ask that from them and say, how many of your board members are actually diverse? How many of your board members and strategy development specialists are focused on the Latinx or the Black or the LGBTQ or these other identities and cultures that are important to our community? Like, we really have to come together as, I'm with the think tank and she's with Radical Radio, and we got together and we were like, something's not making sense. And so she said, I've got a resource, I've got a platform, let's work together to reach out to others. But let's talk about something substantial, something that could get us closer to solutions. And it only comes when we put together measurements, right? So if you just send a child into a learning environment, but you don't give them no report card, how are you letting the parents know how they're doing? Absolutely. How are you letting the child know how they're doing? We are used to being graded and saying you doing above level, below level, you at average, you exceeding expectations. We have to start using that kind of thinking when it comes to elected officials, private institutions, and public entities. You talk about McDonald's. You can come into North Chicago or Keegan, Zion, and I'm gonna be honest, you can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want, but you can't do that in Lake Forest.
Right.
You cannot do that in shoot. You can barely do that in Antioch.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, but what quality of life are they setting for themselves?
Mhm.
You know what I mean? How many trees do they demand to be left alone in their space?
Mhm.
How, these are the things that we have to ask ourselves, and we got to say, all of our or I'll wait till we get to the nonprofit, but we got to look at how many private institutions and public entities are in Lake County right now, and what have they done in the last year to protect us?
Yeah.
What have they done to help us create a high quality of life for ourselves? And I think it's when you really look at the data, it's going to be subpar. Are they hiring us? Are they helping us acquire homes? Are they helping us create cultures where we can thrive and really introduce high quality of life for our children? Do we have extensive and amazing marketplaces? This is what they're doing in these other countries. I just really want to be really passionate and clear about that. When you go to India, when you go to Vietnam, and I'll share some pictures with y'all offline, but when you go to Thailand, that market experience is different. It's engaging. They get to be out at night. We don't even really get to be out at night because they've created this environment that says if you out at night, you're doing something bad.
Absolutely. And then we have our people. So Unique Williams says people in the area are used to receiving subpar quality. Finding out what acceptable standards are by going to affluent communities and comparing the quality will help people set standards and hold those in position of power accountable. And we were talking about that.
Yeah.
Like, I lived in Atlanta for 10 years, right? Just the fact that I was able to go to another state and I was able to build myself up and really heal and really see things that I had never seen before. See our people working together, see our people riding around in luxury and really working and being entrepreneurs and owning their own businesses. And not only that, one of the most amazing things that I saw when I lived in Atlanta was the fact that I could be at the grocery store. When I drove through my subdivision, it would be people just waving.
Yeah.
Just waving to you. Like, you don't know them from Adam, but they waving at you. Hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
You're in the grocery store. People are talking to you. And when it came to entrepreneurship, that was the first place that I had ever been where somebody had given me something to promote and empower my business without having to pay a dime. Free game.
Yeah.
And not because they knew me, not because, they could gain something from me. It was simply off the strength that we were two Black people trying to get ahead, and I had an idea, and they felt like they could help me promote my new business. Like, it doesn't happen like that everywhere, but we have to start going outside of the norm and get to the uncomfortable place. And I'll share this too. I remember when I lived in Atlanta, I came from here. And us in the North, we don't speak to people that we don't know. Right? If we don't know you, we just don't speak because that's just the way we've been conditioned, because that's how we roll here. So I remember someone at my job was telling me, like, oh, I just thought you was this mean person because you never smile, you never speak, nothing. And even when the people, when I would go home and people would be waving at me, my first thought in my mind was like, what are they waving at? They don't even know me. But it's the Southern hospitality. It's the fact that, we're all in this community together. I'm going to speak to you. If you need something, or if you're in trouble, or if something's going on, it doesn't matter. We're in this community and I can help you.
I think to piggyback off that is that it's Southern hospitality, but it's also like global cultures are neighborly. They're relative. When I moved to India, I thought it was real interesting that they don't use the terms Mr. or Mrs. It's always auntie or uncle.
Oh, that's dope.
And it's like every time you meet somebody, if it's a stranger, and they say Cheta, so Cheta is uncle, and auntie is Chechi, Chechi, and you just don't create such levels of distance between you and other people.
Right.
You know what I mean? I've learned that it's important to be able to say hello in 4 languages. You can do that. I can say, like, if I go to Thailand right now, I can say Sawadee. I know how to say hello. If I'm in Vietnam. I know how to say Sin Chow, to say like just I'm gonna speak,
Yeah.
and I think that we have to understand that that's organized, that's planned, and so you have to be intentional. When I came back home and I started talking to people, and even abroad, it was some black people that was real finicky and real uppity, and at first moment when you speak to a brother, you say, "Good morning, brother." It's gonna shock them. They don't like it. They're like, "What are you talking to me? You a crackhead? You finna ask me for something? You finna do?" You know what I mean? Like we have to
get away from that.
create with a shared responsibility that you tell yourself every day, "I'm gonna talk to somebody on the street."
Yes.
You know what I mean? You have to instill that responsibility and say, even if don't nobody talk to me for the first few weeks, I'm gonna keep doing it. It's not I'm not gonna put that requirement on them. I'm gonna put that requirement on me.
That's right.
You know what I mean? I'm gonna start building my community back to a place that I want it to be. And it's going to be lonely for you for a little bit. And you just got to kind of own that with understanding that you're planting a seed. And so that's the other thing too, is that, when you talk about elected officials, private institutions, and public entities in other places of the world, they teach you your relationship with seeds and trees and fruit. It's all relative. If you plant a seed, it's not going to pop up right now. It's not going to pop up right now because that's literally not how life works.
Right.
You got to plant that seed, put the food in there, wait for the rain, watch the sun, tend to it, and then over a period of time, then you're going to get the fruit. But we so distant from that because of elected officials, because of private institutions, because of public entities.
Yeah.
And we have to hold them accountable to say, where's our stuff? Where's our land? Where's our access to these very vital things that improve our quality? And again, I want to repeat that the North Chicago think tank isn't setting these. We want to invite people to come together and think about it and say, let's look at the definition of quality of life and the indicators, and let's say if it agrees with us.
Now, and stay right there, because hear what he's saying, y'all. A lot of us don't want to do research no more. It's the instant gratification that we want. We want things to change, but everybody's sitting at home saying, rah rah rah, we want things to change, or we're yelling, or we're screaming, or you know what I'm saying? We sitting back just watching.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, it comes to a point where we have to be able to do the research. A lot of the ways that we have been brought up and conditioned, it's time for us to throw that stuff away.
Throw it away.
Throw it away.
Yes.
Our parents were conditioned, their parents were conditioned, their parents were conditioned, just going all the way back, and we don't know how far this go back.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, let's just take slavery, right? Documented slavery. It's documented as 400 years, right? Think about how many lives that was. That's at least, if everybody lived to 100 years old, that's at least 4 generations that was cool with slavery.
4.
That's if everybody lived until 100, and that's not the case.
Right.
So how many generations was like, well, that's just the way it is. This is just the way it is. And you have to really, this is why the think tank is really about challenging your brain and telling you hearing all these quotes and people saying all these weird stuff to you, that's just the way it is. You cannot listen to that. People telling you, oh, the grass is greener on the other side. Really? Go test it. Yeah. Walk outside, go introduce yourself to your neighbor and ask them, what you doing to your grass? Because yours look greener than mine from this side. Can we share a glass of water and look at your grass from this side? See, this is what I'm saying. We get into these ways of life where you're not questioning nothing. And you're not empowered and you don't think you could change nothing, and so you just gonna go to your job every day and make somebody else rich, and they're having a high quality of life on your back, and you have to understand that this is white supremacy. This is how it works. It's organized, it's consistent, and it's thorough. And you will go home every night and tell yourself, well, I'm a success because I went and worked 8 hours for somebody else.
And it's working, Billy. It's working.
It's working.
It's working.
It's working.
Because we've gotten to that place where, like you said, we're just complacent. If we got, a savings account and we got some money saved and our credit is good, then we're content. But that's a measure that they're using against us.
So even if you talk about a credit report or a savings account, you can't just say I got a savings account or a credit report. They're going to ask you, what's the number? Yeah. and they're gonna track you. You know what I mean? My little apps be dinging me all the time. Make sure you spend from this credit card so you can make sure that this is doing this. If you got stocks or a portfolio, they like, hey, watch the
Every
markets,
day.
make sure this is happening. You know what I mean? That savings account, you can't just go get a loan if you don't have all your stuff lined up with exact measurement. And
Yeah.
that's what we're saying is this is how the world and the earth works, exact measurement. And if you're not gonna take the time, you gotta do two things. You either gotta research, bump that literacy up and research for yourself, or you got to go outside.
Yeah.
Those are the only ways that you really gonna glean or learn that information that's necessary for you to transition to the next step. And so you have to. I'm a roll it back to the elected officials, private institutions, and public entities. Why is it so hard for us to go outside? Like right now, because of COVID, it's different. But y'all know, you start talking about and moving around or going even from state to state. It's difficult for you to do that.
Yeah.
It's not by accident.
Yeah.
It's not by accident. It's not an accident that very little people migrate.
Yeah.
It's only the people, it's not by accident that we feel like immigrants who are running for safety is their fault that stuff happens to them. It's not by accident. This racial triangulation and all this white proximity and all this stuff. I don't want to get into those terms, but you have to go back to these elected officials, private institutions, and public entities and say, how close are you to white supremacy tactics?
And you're calling it out. See, we've gotten to the point where like we so comfortable that we don't call it what it is. When you are working for these Fortune 500 companies and they are treating you simply as a number, right? And they are, not giving you the due diligence of making sure that you have all of the information and that you have a say-so in how you're treated. And when you have no entity to go to, you can't really go to a human resources person and really file a complaint and feel comfortable. Like that is all white supremacy. That's all conditioning that they've done to us to keep us where we are, to
Yes.
keep us in our place.
Yeah.
And at some point, you got to start thinking about these things. You got to start looking at what this means. Like, am I okay with really just sitting here saying nothing?
And you also have to realize, when you look at kind of like what's happening with Medline and the people who need, you are so exploited. It's measurable. It's so. This is not me. This is not my opinion. You are so exploited because choosing to do anything different comes with a threat of homelessness or starvation. You really need to understand. You know what I mean? When you live in check to check and you don't have savings, that's why I'm so forgiving of people who may not have the strength right now to do some of the things that I want to do.
Yeah.
I'm ready to sleep outside, but everybody can't do that. I'm single. I have a certain kind of aesthetic about myself. I have certain concessions that I can make because it's only me.
Right.
But you have to understand that that is also part of white supremacy. If you know that you can't say nothing to your boss, but they being bogus because you need that check to feed your children, that's exploitation.
It is.
If you saying, I can't really make the decisions that I want to make for my life because if I stop working this job, this horrible job where they're taking advantage of me, I will lose my house, my rent, my bills, my whatever.
Yes.
And you really have to understand how elected officials play into that, private institutions and public entities. You want to talk about nonprofits?
Let's go ahead and talk about nonprofits.
Okay, so when we talk about exploitation, there's always someone that comes around and say, I can help you.
Yes.
You are exploited by these elected officials and these private institutions and these public entities, but I'm a nonprofit organization and I can help you. Now, the think tank is a nonprofit organization, but we want to say very clearly and very assertively, we're not here to save you. We're here to help you get to a place where you start using that brain to help
Save yourself.
to save yourself, because you know what, you should feel empowered enough to do that. And I want to talk about a practical way that we do that.
Yes.
The North Chicago think tank is called the North Chicago think tank because we use strength-based activism. And what that means is when someone comes in to the North Chicago think tank, we send them an assessment that tries to understand their natural strengths. And then they have those strengths, and we kind of empower them to say, did you know you're dope in this way, and you could do this strength and this strength and this strength and this strength? Now that you know that, let's talk about some things that you could do to improve the quality of life for people in North Chicago using those strengths. So instead of saying you need us, no, we're saying we want to make sure you see how much we need you. And if you don't know how much we need you, we're going to give you this assessment so that you see it and you feel empowered. And so, you know, when you talk about these nonprofit organizations, you have to ask yourself, are you funded? And I don't mean just from the government. Are you getting money from like private institutions or public entities? What you doing with all that money? And how long you been doing it? There's no reason, I'm gonna be honest, the North Chicago think tank is not meant to be an everlasting entity. We are here to shake y'all up a little bit, get that brain going, and then exit stage left. Because once somebody really empowers you and gives you the resources that you need, you don't need them anymore. You don't need them anymore. When you plant a seed and it's an apple tree, the tree is going to bloom and new apples are going to form. And those have their own seeds, and they're going to fall and roll and go to their own places. You're not supposed to just stay next to that same apple tree. That's not how it works. And we have to start holding these nonprofit organizations accountable to say, what's your mission statement? What's your objectives? What are your goals and how measurable are they? Who is on your board? Why are the people at the top of your organization not diverse or inclusive or indicative of the community that they represent? When I see a board, I want to see a Latin face, I want to see a Black face, I want to see an Asian face, I want to see a white face, I want to see all of the faces, because that's what my life is. That's what our community is. But why is it all white? And we need to hold their feet to the fire. Okay, for 2021, how long are you going to keep that board? Because we're not going to trust you till you switch that up. These are the things. We still feel very nervous to do that. We still feel very nervous to go to a non-for-profit organization and say, how often do you put out your accounting report? How often, how transparent is it? How much did you spend of your budget last year? And what were the metrics that you are using to call yourself a success? So you keep wanting us to trust you, but you've been in the neighborhood for 15 years. What have you done? And I want to be very clear that, part of my identity is assertiveness. This is not combativeness. Combativeness?
Say that again. Say it one more time. It's not
combativeness.
Thank you.
Assertiveness.
And tell the people, because I think people get aggression and assertive
very confused. So assertive is dangerous to white supremacy. And this goes back to holding nonprofit organizations or volunteer organizations accountable. Part of your exploitation is for them to say, you don't tell me what you need. I'm going to tell you what you need, and then I'm going to give you whatever portion of what you need I think you deserve. And you're going to say thank you. And you're going to say please. You know what I mean? And that, even in the language that we're supposed to use and the way we're supposed to behave when we're at these tables that we're never invited to. No, you have been exploiting us for so long. And you're making all these excuses about, oh, well, it's not our fault, and it's this and it's that. But you sitting up there getting you're getting the majority of the cake. And we see you eating well. No. And so you need to learn. You have to take that time. I researched and said, okay, what kind of language do I use to become assertive? And then when do I become, they use words like passionate. And I get it. You want to use that word, but actually you could have just said honest. But you don't want to say honest, you want to say passionate, because it's like, oh, he just feeling a way about it. No, someone is making me feel a way about
passionate it. Passionate is an emotion, you're right. Passionate is an emotion.
You're making it seem like I'm unhinged. I'm not. I'm appropriately responding to abuse. And that's the thing about shared responsibility. If it's my job to keep you safe, but I'm poking you in your eye, and then I will respond by smacking away the stick, I'm not being aggressive. I'm not being even emotional. I'm not unhinged. You poking me in my eye, and I need it to stop now.
Cause and effect.
Cause and effect.
Cause and effect.
And that is, where are we getting that language? You have to realize that you're part of a community and a demographic that has been worn down so much that they've told you don't get to speak. You don't get to speak until we ask you and give you your 3 minutes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When you talk about, elected officials, private institutions, public entities, how are you going to talk to Abbott? If you want to talk to Abbott right now, how can you talk to them? You can't, because they're so protected.
Yeah.
They're bored, all of that is so protected. You want to talk to ComEd right now? You can't. You want to talk to Medline right now? Try it. You want to talk to Gillette? You want to talk to McDonald's? You want to talk to whoever? Do you even know who are the franchise owners for like the Popeyes in your business, in your area? I just saw a sister just open the first black beauty supply store.
Yes, ma'am.
You know what I mean? It's like, look what's happening, y'all. Look what's happening. And it's because there is no shared responsibility and there's no measured indicators for success. You need to go to your mayor and say, I need this many businesses to be black by next year. I need this many businesses. I'm gonna tell you something, even funding. It ain't no reason why it's so many non-for-profit organizations in Lake County right now that don't qualify for funding.
And why?
And why? When you could just create, you can use just a little bit of money to create a learning experience to tell people this is what you need in order to qualify for this. So you could take this year, you missed the grant this year. I'm sorry, you're gonna have to hustle it out. But by next year, you can be saying every year there should be 5 to 10 organizations that just get money because they learning. Do I have my DUN number? Do I have my tax information set up correctly? Do I have the data that's needed to submit to make sure I qualify for this grant versus this grant versus this grant? It's no reason why all of these highfalutin entities that are mainly white leadership boards are getting all the money when they don't even understand the data that applies to our unique identities.
That part. And I want to jump in right here, Billy, because a lot of times, like, okay, so we got Sister Sheila at home cooking out of her kitchen, and everybody buying dinners from Sister Sheila. Sister Sheila needs a restaurant, right?
Yep.
But it comes to the point where we go through so many hoops.
Yes.
I mean, just off the strength alone of trying to meet when, we were protesting, we were trying to meet in a location and we wanted to do it the right way. So we wanted to make sure that they knew that we were going to be there.
Yeah.
It was so much red tape that we had to go through and so many hoops that we had to jump through that it became a thing where we said, no, well, we're just going to do it this way.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us are getting discouraged.
Yeah.
We have this gift, we have this talent, we have this vision that, could possibly help our community and give jobs to people within the community and give resources to people in the community. But by the time we get the layout of what we need to do, we're like, oh, well, we don't have that.
Yeah.
Or we can't do that. Yeah. Or I don't know how I'm going to get that. Yeah. So then we get to the point where we're discouraged.
Yeah.
And then we fall back and the vision just totally gone.
Yeah.
That's what we need to stop. These are the things that we need. We need to be able to be told when we're getting funding for COVID in our community, where is the money going? When we're getting money through COVID for business grants, for small business, where is the money going?
I want to be very clear. We are a research-focused organization. So I really want, people see me out here and they see me being assertive and they see me talking. And it's because every time I do an interview, I go back home and I talk to my team and we do research and we look. So when I was frustrated, I caught COVID and my family caught COVID and we had a very poor experience through the IDPH and the Lake County Health Department. I started researching what was available and I started just talking. And there's actually a grant from the Illinois Department of Public Health for Region 9. We're considered Region 9, and that's Lake and McHenry counties. And this program is called the Pandemic Health Partner Regional Coordinator Program. And it's meant to put out education and outreach and care coordination services for cities and counties that are at high risk because of high immigration or Black and brown people or whatever. This grant for Lake County and McHenry County has a budget of $9 million. $9 million specifically for our county for education, outreach, and care coordination services. There are simple things that are not being told to us that can protect us from COVID. So now I'm asking,
Right.
who got that money and who's responsible for Lake County? And I'm going through elected officials, private institutions, public entities, and funded nonprofits to ask, who got $9 million or even close to it? And what did they do with the money once they got it? Because these people, I'm gonna be honest with y'all not educated about COVID. I'm gonna be honest with you, not to the level where you see your dad in the ICU in a coma with the ventilator because he can't breathe because he didn't have a pulse oximeter and he didn't know how to measure the oxygen in his blood, and so his level was so low, but he thought he was feeling okay. So you have to understand that there are unique risks to us because of our identities and because of our situation, and there's money that's been earmarked to help us specifically, and I can't say for sure who got that money, but I know that the Illinois Department of the Illinois Health Association. No, I'm going to say it wrong. When I post this link, I'll say the group that they said is the grantee for it. But we asked them with very specific asks, where are the public education centers where we can learn about what COVID really means? Where is the care coordination for people who are deciding not to take the vaccination? There are people who are legitimately scared to take that vaccination because of what white supremacy has done to Black and brown bodies over the years, especially Black women. You're not going to scare us into becoming a guinea pig for you, whether that's valid or not. I know the science and I know the data, but I'm not going to invalidate a human who is looking at me in my eye with tears in their eyes because they're scared of that vaccination. You're not going to invalidate that, and I'm not going to let you invalidate that. But what I am going to do is, regardless of if my community wants to take the vaccination or doesn't, you need to be safe. And I don't understand why elected officials, private institutions, public entities, funded nonprofits are not saying that to us.
Right.
We are unique in that we don't want to take the vaccination. And so now we got to prove to you why that's okay for us to say. But you've been fooling on us and hurting us for centuries, and we are the ones who have to be accountable for this situation.
And that's real, because I mean, it goes back to, the Tuskegee Airmen. Everybody is talking about the Tuskegee Airmen now because it's coming back. Like, we're starting to look at things. Like, I had to ask myself, like, this is weird, because I've never taken the flu vaccination because it didn't sound right. Like, why would I have you inject something in me in order for me not to get something? Like, it was just something weird to me that I didn't understand.
Yeah.
But in the same breath, you're telling us we have to take a vaccination, or it's best to take this vaccination. And it was quick. The turnaround was so quick. But when it comes to us knowing, like really knowing, even when we have to take our kids to school, we're told you have to vaccinate your children in order for them to participate in public school.
Yes.
So if they don't participate in these vaccinations, then they can't come to school. But then it comes to the thought process of, you don't hear, like when I was growing up, I never heard of eczema. Where did that come from? All of a sudden, there was a big crisis with a lot of our children being labeled with ADHD. Why? Like, it's just all these things that start to plague our communities, and you have to ask yourself and wonder, how like, how is this just happening all of a sudden? And these things are just coming out of the woodwork all of a sudden. Honestly, yes, we know that there's science, we know that there's doctors that are researching and things like that, but when it starts to plague us as a people.
And I want to be clear, when you talk about these what we're doing is creating a space, a judgment free space to validate our feelings.
Yes.
There should be funding for that. There should be a space where a person can say, you know what, I caught COVID and I just want to share my story, and I want to
Yes.
make sure as many people know about it. There are people who say they don't want to take the vaccination because of they want to protect their wounds, or they, but it's like, how are we making sure that they get the factual data?
Yes.
You have churches and other spaces providing incorrect information and telling people that they shouldn't take this vaccination or another vaccination because of this or because of that. So people's attention is being pulled from left to right, and they're like, I don't know what to believe. I know that Nurse Rivers tricked a lot of people into doing the syphilis experiment. I don't want that same thing to happen to me. We know that Black women are not feeling believed in the doctor's offices. And so you ask yourself, there's money that can be used to systematically address this issue. Where is the outreach to build a better relationship between the Black community and medicine?
Yes.
There's none of that. It's just take the vaccination. Just take the vaccination. And we don't work like that because that's our culture. You have to understand that it's not a dig to say, I don't trust you.
Right.
And I don't like you. What have you done to make me feel better about this situation? And you're not going to use, you see very interesting tactics where they're like, well, we can get some people from the community to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not going to talk about it your way. We want to do things that are measurably effective at keeping our people safe. And if that means creating a safe space for Black people to talk about why they don't want to take the vaccination, you need to find that space, and you need to make that for us so that we can start to make better decisions. I'll tell you what else. You don't even understand really the totality of your risk because no one gave you a risk analysis. Your risk for COVID is so conditional on your age, on your race, on your sex, on your, maybe not so much your sex, but like your occupation, whether you're going outside a lot, whether you have access to well-ventilated homes. Like there's so many pieces to that.
Absolutely.
And we deserve the opportunity to have a risk analysis to say, how at risk am I? And there's numbers out there, staggering numbers that say once you reach a certain age, your likelihood of catching and dying from the disease is this much higher than your niece or your nephew. We're at a point right now where we're just protecting our grandma.
Yeah.
No one is going to see her because we all out here.
Yeah.
So we've made a decision to say we want our grandmother to stay around for as long as she wants to, and we're not going to let this COVID get to her. How many families have yet to make a plan? How many families have yet, the AACPG did a giveaway for thermometers. And so many people needed thermometers. Do you have a health preparedness kit in your home? Who's teaching you what should be in it? You get what I'm saying? You're not getting, even when I went through my COVID experience, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, I want to move on to citizen. But I just want to let you guys know that there is valid reason for holding elected officials, private institutions, public entities, and nonprofit organizations accountable. Ask them what their mission is. Ask them what their objectives are. Ask them what their goals are. Measurable goals. And ask them, who's in your leadership team? Who's writing your strategy? Who's doing your polls? How many people in our community actually approved you to be here? Because I'm going to tell you what, it's really interesting that we can't get stuff to help us go through COVID, but we can have a poisonous purple truck on 10th Street handing out crack pipes and needles. There are harm reduction services that do need to come for portions of our community, but harm reduction services should be available for the entire community. A lot of us are suffering from mental health issues.
Right
and it's
now.
really boggling my brain that we have a whole free clinic in North Chicago. I don't know if you know, but it's called the ICC, and it's connected to the Rosalind Franklin University. And you can get behavioral health services. You can get physical health services. There's options for you, and no one is telling us. And I'm confused at the role of these people who are in charge when I'm talking to these entities, and they're saying this been out here since 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. If you don't have insurance or you don't have any money and you are using that as a reason to not take care of your health, I want to tell you that the North Chicago think tank is partnering with the ICC to tell you there is a place for you to get health care for free with no insurance in the town. And we're trying to increase awareness of that and increase access to that, but we're not funded. So we're really confused as to why there's a grant for $9 million and there's a space with qualified individuals who can provide healthcare to people with no insurance and for free, but it's not widely known in the Lake County area.
It's a problem. So let's get to citizens. We're going to talk about us.
Yes.
We had a conversation earlier, and we were just talking about a lot of the stigmas. The fact that we cannot come together. It's hard for us to come together, or we don't really know how to present ourselves in a way where we're not, displaying frustration, aggression, because we are mad and we have a right to be mad. But a lot of it falls on us as the people to be responsible on how we're going to make better choices, how we're going to move in a different direction to see the change.
Yes.
So what is it that we as a people need to do? What is the authenticity and the accountability that we need to have about ourselves when it comes to holding these entities accountable?
So I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I'm just gonna tell you what I did. I'm not gonna say that it is necessarily right for you, but I'm just gonna tell you what I did. I chose to do research and then go talk to people who experienced extreme oppression and extreme revolutions. I went and I lived in Nepal for a while. And if you didn't know, Nepal had it was called the Maoist Conflict. And it was a huge conflict that really rocked their country from, I believe, 2001 to 2006. My dates might be off, but it was really them trying to be like, should we be under a monarchy, which is a king, or should we go to socialism, or should we go to, like, what kind of government do we really want? And a lot of people died. I went to Cambodia and I learned about the Pol Pot genocide and just this idea that there is a military coup, and teachers start to radicalize students, and people start saying we should have something different. If you look at what's happening in Thailand right now, they're challenging the monarchy. If you're looking at what's happening in Myanmar right now, there was a military coup, and a beautiful young lady just got shot in the head because she was protesting that. You have to look at what happened in Venezuela. You have to look at the Rwanda genocide, and you have to look at it from a day-to-day perspective and ask yourself, what change do I want and what am I willing to go through in order to get it? A lot of people are, I'm going to use the word ignorant, but it's not a dig. It just means you don't know. The word revolution sounds really cool. And, you're talking about we should have communism, or we should have this, or we should have that. But if you haven't gone to Cuba and understood why people would put a fix in the water and try to use it to get to Florida, you don't understand the reality of these kind of oppressions. Mm-hmm. If you don't, we're very fortunate. Even though we're suffering, you are suffering. Yes. I'm not invalidating your suffering. But when you look at it from a global scale and you really start to talk to people, you really start to see what it actually takes. Yeah. You ask them, who actually is Che Guevara? Because they put his face all over buttons and stuff, but I don't really know who he is. What was he about? You know what I mean? And you have to do the work. You just have to do the work, and you have to ask yourself, what am I going to do to myself to change my experience on this planet? It's a lot of, it's your responsibility. It's your responsibility. And you're right. I do think that these organizations that have been set in place are the most accountable, but we are too. And we have to understand that we're so powerful to change things, but your external is not going to change until your internal is ready to handle it.
That's right.
I'm going to tell y'all something real simple. When I was living in Asia, and this might be TMI, they don't use toilet paper. You have to understand that when you tell somebody that you ain't finna listen to them, and they control your water, they control your food, they control your lifestyle, they control everything about your situation, and you gonna You gonna tell them you ain't gonna listen no more? They could kill you easy when they pull you over for a stop.
Mhm.
So you really have to understand. I think people have to take the time to really understand the spectrum of power and ask themselves, what am I really willing to do for myself to change this situation?
Mhm.
Do I want to follow all the rules or do I want to do civil disobedience? What's my activist identity?
And we were talking about earlier just the power of us as a people, our presence infuriates them, scares them,
Yes.
confuses them,
Yes.
all of that. Just the mere fact, like I said, me and Billy, we two different, people. I orange hair, he got his hair, his afro out, you know what I'm saying? Like he rocking his jacket, his boots, whatever. We're two entities that when we step in the room, we're automatically looked at as a threat before we open our mouths, before we can speak, before we can give any dialogue or show them our our power of how smart we are and things like that. Like before we even open our mouths, like we're a threat to them.
Yeah.
So we have power, and that's one thing that I don't think we as people really understand the power that we hold. And I've always said this: for someone to literally hate you just because of this,
Yeah.
them literally looking at you and coming up with the notion that they absolutely hate you because of your skin,
Yeah.
you have to know it's something about you that is extremely powerful for that to happen.
Yeah.
And I feel like us as a people don't really realize how powerful we are. I feel like our ancestors, before even when segregation was going on, there were a lot of us that had their own businesses. Like
Yeah.
we didn't
Yeah.
just start entrepreneurship. Like we've been entrepreneurs.
And
Even when they was picking cotton, they had their own businesses amongst each other that they were, thriving from.
Yeah, and I want to talk about two things because you were talking about the sister that's selling the food out of her home.
Mhm.
I want to be really clear. Like when Black people do really cool stuff, like selling food out of their home, they're really expressing their home culture. So when I lived in Vietnam, the man who lived next to me made tofu in his home, and every night I would come down and I would go to his shop that was right in his living room and buy tofu. And it was the freshest, best tofu I had ever had. And there were businesses in every home down the block.
Facts.
See, this idea that I know how to cook and I can make money from it, but I got to have a whole restaurant. We might need to change that up to say, well, why can't we just do what is it called? A sanitation program?
Mhm.
Why can't we put a bridge to say, okay, sis, you might can't get a storefront, but we can create a situation where you could get your product out to people in a way that's safe for the community
Yes.
and still gives you money. We can create a mini license or something. See, that's the thing. They're not being creative. And they're not being creative enough to say your identity is requiring something else. So we really want to push people to think about that. And I also wanted to talk about supporting each other. So one of the things that I realized that I needed to change over the course of this year was how I support my brothers and sisters. I have made it my point to just support, not to say I don't know how to support you. Now I don't. You got to tell me more about this. No, you need support. You got it. So when
ZLA.
ZLA went through their, Zoe Life Academy and Crystal McNeely. Yes. Sorry, I didn't want to say your last name wrong, sis. But, I was like, man, I don't really know what's going on. I'm going to the stand-a-thon.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit on the fact that I don't know her or I don't know what happened. I'm going to go. I'm going to ask Carlos. I'm going to ask people, like, what can I do? So I went and talked to her, and she's like, bet. This is what you need to do. I need you to show up at this council meeting. I know it's not your city, but here's our game plan. Here's some information, and here's how you can speak. She laid it out. She had everything. She sent it to me, and then I just studied it. And then I went to the council meeting, and I didn't know exactly what to say specifically because I'm not a Zion resident, but I did let the mayor know we stand behind our brothers and sisters across these cities.
Right.
We're not separate.
And it's more so too, even like with the ZLA situation, like when Los went live and he shared her story, I hadn't heard her story. I heard her story. I wasn't able to be there, but I was able to donate.
Yes.
Another thing that we have to stop doing as a people, we did it when we were all protesting. Like, you ain't boots on the ground. You can't talk. Like, come on. We all have a role,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And you do your part. You do what you can. There may be people that didn't have a ride. There may be people that didn't have money to donate.
Yes.
But the fact that in their heart, if they wanted to help, if they listen to her story,
Yes.
if they share her story, if they let her story be known, that is them giving what they have. We have to stop downing our brothers and our sisters because we feel like you ain't doing enough. We all still have a part, and we still need to come collectively to do our parts collectively. Like I said, even if it means you know a situation and you're sharing that situation with somebody else. You're getting the word out. That is something that you can do.
You can go talk to your brother.
Yeah.
That is huge.
Yes.
I reached out to Big Andrew Gatson. Really huge in doing the events and stuff, but we never really connected. We've been watching each other from afar. I went to the African American Millennial Takeover at Stretches, and you know what I did? I said, I'm just buying stuff. I bought books from publishing companies that were there. I bought sweatshirts from people. I just was like, okay, I'm either gonna give some intellectual property or I'm gonna spend some money. And I think it's important to just do that for each other. We'll go buy the mall out.
Yeah.
We'll go, pop a bottle or do whatever. And if that's your wave, that's great. But like, it's real simple for you to just spend some money if you got it.
Yeah.
And if you don't got it, just talk to your brother. Send some encouraging information. Send some tips to say, you're trying to start your business, just, not trying to get in your stuff, but just wanted to know, can I help you in any way? I started my business, or I did this, or I learned that. Start to share with each other. Start to just connect.
Yeah.
Watch each other's podcasts. Share each other's podcasts.
Yeah.
Go on each other's shows and stay really local. You don't have to. There's nothing wrong with staying in North Chicago, Waukegan, and Zion. It's nothing wrong.
We have to start understanding that there's power in Lake County.
There is.
Like, there's so many people doing so many things. I've asked for young people who are entrepreneurs who have their own businesses to come on the show so that they can promote their business and they can get the word out about their business. Why? Because I just want to pour into them.
Yeah.
It's no gain for me.
Yeah.
I don't want anything.
Yeah.
I just want everybody to be able to win. And that's the part that we're missing.
Yeah.
There's enough of everything to go around for everybody. We can all win together.
Yeah.
We have to stop, getting to that point. There's been so many times where, I've heard people say things, about a person, but I truly believe that you don't know nobody until you sit down and you make yourself known and you hear their story. I'll use Los as a perfect example. Los came on the show and he shared his story with me, and it opened up so much more respect that I have for him, that there's nothing that you can say about Los to me.
Yeah.
And that's because I wanted to hear his story on my own. When I have people on my show, is to hear their stories, to get to know them, to get to know what they went through, what they endured, what they, persevered through, how resilient they were. Yeah. We are all a resilient people where we're going through things, but we're able to push through. We're still able to move forward. Billy has the North Chicago think tank. It was so easy when I met him. He came, he shared. It was amazing. So there was no judgment. We may have differences, but as a people as well, we got to get to the point where we don't just automatically, you say something I don't like and I'm writing you off, or I want to fight you, or I'm gonna go off on you, I'm gonna cuss you out,
or I'm not showing up to you,
or I'm not gonna support you. No, just because you say something or I hear something doesn't mean that I can't support you, doesn't mean that I'm gonna shade you, doesn't mean that I'm gonna do that. At the same time, I can come to my brother and say, yo, Billy, I heard XYZ, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Even if I still disagree, I still have the power and the choice to agree to disagree with my brother. That doesn't mean we gotta fall out. Yeah. Like, it's horrible. Yeah. It's a horrible thing to watch leaders in your community fighting. It's a horrible thing to watch one business owner to another business owner fighting. It's a horrible thing. It happens. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. It happens. But how are we handling it?
And I also want to center a very important statement for me. It's a serious situation. I know that we get caught up in material and we get up, we're trying to get our bags and everybody's trying to, succeed in our idea of capitalism or whatever. But there's death. There is death coming for us directly and indirectly. And I know a lot of people may not really understand that. When you go to some of these meetings and you see what kind of air we breathe in, when you go to some of these meetings and you see how many people are getting killed, they're getting murdered. There are still children sitting in cages right now while we think about how we want to support our brothers and sisters. It's no longer a point for me to make it more of a value to stroke my ego than to help my brothers and sisters.
That part.
Because it's too serious. They're coming for us directly and indirectly. This virus is out here. There's a new strain coming from Brazil. There's a new strain. I'm telling y'all, it's like, it's not a game and it's not over. I know a lot of people think it's over and they really want to get back to some sort of idea of normalcy, but you have to understand the police are killing us, and these mothers and these fathers are just wanting people to care. They're saying, don't let this happen to you. Care about it now. What if we had to run to another country? Would we want them treating us like the way we treat immigrants? These Asian people are getting stabbed on the street and pushed, and like it's just getting ridiculous. It's getting ridiculous, and it's because we're not caring about each other. And they saying, if I do something to you, if I really F you up, ain't nobody gonna come to your show anyway. Ain't nobody gonna come and support you anyway. And we have to realize that that is a dig at our power, and we're way more powerful than that. We're able to handle this very serious situation.
And it comes down to Billy when he has experienced COVID. I have experienced COVID. People close to me, people close to him have experienced COVID. I'm gonna tell y'all, like, yo, it make you look at life a totally different way because you don't have control of yourself, your body, your thoughts. Like, there's so many things that run through your mind when you have experienced this thing, because you don't know, like, there's people dying left and right. So you're literally like infected with COVID and you don't know if you gonna make it.
And I'm gonna be honest, like, everybody has a different experience, but there's no space for us to talk about it. And that's so dangerous. You know what I mean? When you look at the way Black people, this goes back to our identity being unique. When you look at the way we view sickness, we view sickness based on our ability to make money.
Absolutely.
So we'll say, you know what, I'm sick as a dog, but I got to get to the office or not the office, I'm getting on the line, or I'm going to the doctor, or I'm going to pack groceries or whatever, because I don't have no time off. Absolutely. If I call in sick one more time, I'm going to lose my job. And so you think about that. I sat with COVID for I say 4 to 5 days, just trying to get it out my system on my own. Because I just taught myself, you don't even have the luxury to be sick. You don't even have the space to be sick, because you got to make sure you can't hit that savings account. You got to keep all your stuff in order. And then once it happened to me, it just took me and just put me on my back. And at that time, I realized I didn't do all the research that I really should have did. And it was only because I had a neighborly network, because my family was around me to say, my brother DJ, I keep shouting him out. He went to a nurse and said, I need a line of vitamins to help my brother, because it's not going the way he think it's going. He need what food should he be eating? How much water should he be drinking? It will dehydrate you to the point where the bottom of your face is dry all the way out. I had to go get a dehumidifier, make sure that was in there, all while I'm sick, because I didn't do the work before.
And we talked about this, like, there's people that don't have a village. I had a village. My cousin was dropping off stuff. She made sure I had the vitamins that I need. When it came down to disinfecting, she was dropping stuff off at the door. You had your village there to bring you what you needed. There are people literally battling this COVID and they don't have anybody, or they're by themselves. There are people that are in the hospital. We can't go in the hospital to visit. You can't go and sit with your loved ones. People are passing away, and they're passing away on their own. You're not able to, give your last goodbyes, kiss your loved ones before they leave, say what's on your heart to them before they leave this world. And that's enough for us to get our stuff together and really come together in unity. And yes, hold these entities accountable, but do it together. Yeah. At the end of the day, yeah, the think tank has a structure. I'm with it. You know what I'm saying? Like holding businesses accountable that don't know how to treat us, that treat us less than anybody else, holding them accountable. He has a whole strategy that he would like to put together for us. But at the same time, we got to get out of our own way. We hold ourselves back from so much. All he's asking for us to do is hear, do our own research, and get on board. Listen, do our own resource or our own research, and then get on board. If that means we all have to collectively go around town and do surveys and talk to people and tell people what the initiative is. I'm not from No-Go, but I don't care, because when No-Go get it together, Waukegan gonna get it together, Zion gonna get it together, and yes, we all gonna get it together.
And we're not gonna stop.
And it's not just Waukegan, North Chicago, and Zion.
Right.
They come here, we can go there.
Yeah.
If they come in from Vernon Hills, Lake Forest, Lincolnshire, and all that, and they come over here, we can go there. It's information. Yeah. We're researching. Yeah. We're providing information. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. And I want to be clear too that the more I learn, the more intense the situation becomes for me. All you have to do, if you don't want to believe me about the air quality, you can be in North Chicago on a given Wednesday. You're gonna smell a real interesting smell. Or you can go down to Waukegan Lakefront and you can look to your left, and you're gonna see them big smokestacks. What's in there? What is that? How are we getting readings on that? Our children are breathing that. What's in the water when we go to the beach? These are the things that are important, and we want to talk about them. So, I'm just going to keep doing my rounds. I'm going to keep marching. Y'all going to see me digitally. And y'all going to see me in the streets once it gets a little bit warmer or it gets a little bit safer. But I just want to be encouraging and full of joy at the end to tell people, like, we can do this.
Absolutely.
I just want to be so adamant and strong about that fact. We can do this. And I don't need to be the leader. I will fall back. I will support a young brother. I will support an elderly brother. I will support a sister. It's all of that is no longer a factor, because it's too important. It's really too important.
And before we get out of here, y'all, real talk, I want you guys to understand Billy has the blueprint. So this goes beyond Lake County. This goes beyond Illinois. This goes beyond any place that we sit. Like if you have issues in your community, you also have the choice and the power to go and research, to go and change things within your community. That's wherever you are. You don't have to sit back and feel as if you're the problem when you don't have the information. You can go and secure the information. So we're on a podcast, so this is a platform that's, in different areas. So I say the same thing. If you need to get in touch with the North Chicago think tank, I'm sure that my brother will have no problem giving you a blueprint of what you need to start your own think tank in your own area.
Yes.
The point of this, the mission of this, is to empower our people to go and get the information to get better quality of lives for ourselves. Yeah. That's the mission here. So it doesn't matter where you are. We're speaking about where we are, where we reside, where we're from, but this goes to wherever you are. Yeah. If you want to see a better quality of life for you and your family, you have the right. You have the authority to go and get it.
And I encourage you to go to Facebook and see the North Chicago Think Tank, or send an email to North Chicago Think Tank at Gmail, and just ask us about the quality of our content. Right now, we're just pushing out thought leadership work. So we're putting out PDFs and images that really center the voices of people in North Chicago and amplify their voices. And you can tell us, I think you should do this with this survey, or I'd like to help you amplify this particular message. Like, we are so willing to work with anyone, but we really just want to strive for true and authentic diversity and inclusion. And we want to make sure that people are empowered and making decisions for themselves based on accurate knowledge instead of just following others.
Absolutely. For those of you that are in Lake County, for our brothers and our sisters, y'all make sure y'all get with Billy, get with the think tank. We got to all come together and help him with this initiative. It's not helping him, actually, it's helping us. At the end of the day, we got to start helping ourselves. We got to start doing things for ourselves, because as you can see, they're not looking to give us no information. So you got to get the information yourself. And he has compiled, he has researched, he has a lot of information. We have to get out of our own way and start utilizing our brothers and our sisters that may be stronger in areas that we may not be strong. Like, it's okay. Ego to the side. We're going to get this work in. Real talk. So I thank you, Billy, for coming on. I thank you for the dialogue. Like, we always have dope conversations.
Always.
It's just like, it's amazing to have people that you could be on the same mindset, and, kind of be on the same page.
Yeah.
And we don't expect everybody to be on the same page.
Right.
It's just that we have one common goal and we want better.
Yeah.
That's it. I love you guys. You guys go ahead and follow Radical Radio on Facebook. Become a fan. You can find us on YouTube, Periscope, Twitch. You can also find us on all podcast platforms. We are also on Instagram, _Radical Radio. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. You guys have a blessed weekend.
Bye.